Hello, I am Lahav. The video that you are about to see contains excerpts from 2 sessions of philosophical counseling with the counselee, Carmen. According to my approach, in the first part of the counseling process, I help the counselee explore what I call her perimeter, or if you wish, her cave, as in Plato's famous allegory of the cave. By this I mean her narrow and rigid way of relating to her world, or her way of understanding herself and her environment. We might say that this is her personal philosophy, but this is a philosophy that is not expressed in words or in thoughts. Rather, it is a philosophy that is expressed mostly in her everyday emotions, behavior, attitudes. And for this reason, we are usually not aware of our perimeter. So in the following movie, we see how I help Carmen explore her perimeter. And as usual, we start with some specific personal issue that concerns her, and later we expand to other aspects of her life. Hello, Carmen.
Hello.
What would you like to talk about today?
I would, well, I have this problem that I don't know what to say when I meet a person, and the worst problem is that when I have to call somebody per telephone, I avoid to do it, and because I don't, if it's not a friend, I don't know what to say, how to begin the conversation, and because I try to avoid that, I postpone it, and afterwards I don't call them at all.
Can you give an example?
Well, for example, now I had to call, now that I was in Germany, I was supposed to call a philosophical practitioner, and since I was tired because of other meetings I had, I used that as a pretext not to call him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was exactly?
I would have had to tell him hello, and I don't know. I would not even know how to begin the conversation, and so I said, but I don't call him.
Mm-hmm. And once the conversation begins, then the rest is simpler?
Yes, once when I meet the person directly, I don't have this problem. Then it's it's nice to talk. We can talk for hours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's really only the first few minutes where there are pleasantries, where you say, "How are you?" and so on.
Yeah, because I don't know. Yeah, because
Because what? You don't know what?
Let's say if it's not a known person, then if it's a person I don't know, then I don't know which words I should use and how to say that I am me, and explain about me, and begin and say and begin the conversation. And if it's a person I know but not so good,
mm-hmm.
and let's say I have to ask her something, then I don't know how to, because you cannot just start a question. You cannot just say, "Hello, here I'm Carmen. Please give me the telephone number of somebody."
Mm-hmm.
I have to
mm-hmm.
say things,
mm-hmm.
and
mm-hmm.
then ask
mm-hmm.
what I really want to know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know which things I feel that I don't know.
You don't know which things should be said?
Yeah, I don't know which things yeah, should be said, and that it would be, yeah. It's different, no? I don't know what they want to hear, and others, yeah, what they want to hear.
What they want to hear.
And that they won't think that I am making fun of them.
Mhm.
The philosophical counselor always starts the counseling process by listening to the counselee's experiences. And in order to really understand those experiences, he must listen to the details. General statements are not enough. And so here the counselor encourages Carmen to give specific examples, to elaborate, to compare between different kinds of cases, to look more closely. At this first stage of the counseling, the counselor is trying to get acquainted with the counselee's world. But he's also doing something else. He's trying to identify patterns. Patterns of emotions, patterns of behavior, of thoughts, of attitudes. Carmen's patterns are the building blocks of her world, of her perimeter. They express her particular way of relating to herself and to the world. They express her particular way of constructing the world. And so at this first stage, the counselor is listening to Carmen, and at the same time he is also looking for patterns, and these patterns will later serve as clues to identify Carmen's perimeter, or more specifically Carmen's way of conceiving the world, her conception of the world, which is another way of saying her philosophy of the world.
Today we met some people who said something like that, and I didn't manage to. I took so much time to think how I would answer,
Yes.
that finally I didn't answer anything.
Uh-huh. And you smiled or laughed or
I think so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. What is the fear in this situation? You're afraid. You said before that you're afraid that the other person will think that you make fun of him. Can you explain?
Because it's not real, and then they may think that I think they are stupid, that they won't recognize that it's not real.
So you're afraid that you will hurt them?
Yes, and I also can hurt them if I don't say anything. So
Yes,
it's difficult.
Carmen's experience is beginning to become clear, and it is now time to move on to a new kind of experience. I said earlier that the counselor wants to identify patterns in the counselee's world. But in order to identify a meaningful pattern, it is necessary to have a broader basis, more than one single experience, a broader context. So the counselor wants to move to a new experience. But which one? Well, the counselor always listens for peculiar, outstanding details in the counselee's story. A peculiar detail may indicate that there is something interesting going on there. After all, if all the counselee does is what everybody else does, then there is nothing interesting to say about it. So a peculiar detail may be a clue to an interesting pattern. Now in Carmen's story, there are a couple of peculiar details. One detail is that she has no problem, according to what she tells us, she has no problem to talk with a person in an ongoing conversation. Her problem is only at the very beginning of a conversation. Strange, this is precisely when all you need to know is a few general formulas for how to greet the other person. The other interesting detail is that Carmen, according to what she tells us, is not concerned about being hurt herself. She's not concerned about losing face, about making a fool of herself, about finding herself left and laughed at by the other person. She's concerned about hurting the other person. Strange. Is this something that Carmen often is worried about, hurting the other person? This is the direction that the counselor decided to follow.
It sounds that here you're meeting a new person, there is some kind of social game that is common, hi, how are you, and so on, and you are in a situation that you are afraid of hurting the other person by saying the wrong thing.
Yes. Yes.
Is that a strong experience that you have in general, or that you hurt other people?
Apparently I hurt people without wanting it. But one thing, one reason that I know now that hurts others is that I don't say hello to them. And I don't say hello to them because I forget it.
Where? In what context?
In all contexts, but let's say at work or in all contexts. I never say hello.
So let me understand. You are, let's say, at your workplace, which is the university, right?
Yes.
And there, what? You meet some, or what happens?
I go, let's say in the office, there at the philosophy department, there are 3 people, like, let's say, or 4, let's say, the secretary and the chief of the department and 2 more teachers. Then I have to go in and, let's say I have to talk with one teacher, or with the chief of the department, and then I direct myself to them and talk to them, to the person that I wanted to talk, and I forget to say hello. I don't even hear that the others have say hello to me eventually. No? Sometimes Jose, my husband, said he said hello. I did not even realize that they were saying hello to me. That there are times that I, like in a charm, I try to be in some kind of a charm campaign, and I try to say hello to everybody and not forget it. But then I forget it. It may be 2 or 3 days, and then I forget. And the people get offended.
Now, are there other kinds of offense that you do to people? Let's say that you say the wrong thing, not just that you don't greet. Are there other kinds of offending?
Sometimes I say things to people, or I ask two personal questions, and that is taken as an offense.
Can you give an example?
I don't remember a concrete example, but it's something like somebody tells me that some personal problem about the husband or something like that, and I ask her something like, why are you then with him, or something like that, and this is supposed to be offensive.
You may have noticed that a pattern is starting to show in Carmen's world. A pattern is simply a repeating theme, a theme that appears again and again in different situations and different forms. And indeed, Carmen's difficulty to speak with a new person is not an isolated fact. We are now beginning to see that it is part of a broader pattern. Namely, she finds it difficult to go out of herself and connect with the other person, especially with his personal side, this new and unknown realm. She has no problem discussing with him philosophical issues. That's familiar, impersonal grounds. But when she has to relate to him personally, she is in an unknown territory.
I wonder, more generally, what is your relationship with those other people, for example, with your colleagues? Can you tell me more about who your colleagues are, how you relate to them, what they think, what they want?
The colleagues, I have two kinds of colleagues. The one who liked me, there are some, few, three kinds. The one who that was the first kind. The first kind is the ones who like me, who we are friends, so on. That are 3 or 4. Then there are those who are nice to me, but talk bad on my back.
Behind your back?
Yeah, behind my back. And then there are those who don't like me. That is the most of them. They're boring. I think the worst thing of them is they are boring. When I try to, because sometimes since they hate me so much, I try to find out what they are up to. Maybe if I'm friendly to them, the thing our relation can become better. But they are so boring.
Boring because of what? What happens when you go there?
You cannot talk about anything with them. They have no issue to talk about. They're boring people. I don't know how they teach. I don't know why they don't like me. They really hate me. You can see when I talk to them, they answer with hate, even to simple things like, how are you?
Then what happens when you ask them, how are you?
Fine. But they do this gesture. They are like, they don't want to, they would like to cut the conversation. You notice it at once.
What does this make you feel? Do you feel that you're alienated from people? Do you feel that you're alone? What does it make you feel?
Well, I am alone. And not alone, I have 2 or 3 friends among the other teachers. And yes, and sometimes when I want to leave the university, when I think of leaving the university, I think I'm betraying them because they will remain alone there. Maybe that's only my imagination.
What is your relationship with those people? Those few that are good friends?
That we protect each other.
How?
How? Organizing our own things, sharing and talking about philosophy and yeah.
You have probably noticed many points that connect to the same basic pattern. I don't know what to say to other people. I sometimes hurt others. I don't know why. I don't say hello to others. I sometimes ask questions that are too personal or insensitive. I'm alone, my small group versus the rest of the world. Also, people are boring. Presumably they are boring because I cannot connect what goes on in their minds. And people hate me, they conspire against me. This, by the way, may be in part true, because it may be that people are alienated by Carmen's attitude. In any case, all these points are variations on the same basic pattern. Carmen usually does not go out of herself to acknowledge and appreciate the personal world of the other person and to connect to it. Now, of course, Carmen is much more than this pattern. Carmen is a full human being. But we may say that the pattern is like a skeleton, and that many aspects of her life revolve around it. Just like the body is much more than the bones, but it grows around the bones. And now, towards the end of the first session, comes a crucial step. The counselor will now point out the pattern to Carmen.
Carmen, I would like to stop for a minute and look at what we said and kind of bring it together. Now, I'm looking at all these things that we talked about, and it strikes me that from your perspective, from your eyes, the world is a bit strange. The world of people is a bit strange, incomprehensible, illogical, stupid, boring. Something is strange going on, and within that world there is this little group, there is yourself and little group that maintains the light.
If we do a generalization, then it is more or less like that.
Mm-hmm. So it's like we versus them. The them is a world that is strange, incomprehensible, boring, stupid, illogical.
Well,
and,
yes.
Yeah. And we, not just me, Carmen, but we, there is a certain we that are, that give life, actually, that have light.
So we give life to ourselves, and
Yes.
if it's we give it to others, I don't know, because
Yeah, but you try to give to others, to students.
we try, yes.
Yes,
But,
yeah.
not necessarily, we don't, yes, maybe.
I wonder, is this way of relating to the world, this way of understanding the world, do you think that that's the way other people too relate to the world? That other people too perceive the world in this way of a small we versus a strange, incomprehensible, dark world?
No. No, because many people, there are different reasons why not. I think many people don't ask themselves this. Those people don't ask themselves these questions, because they don't ask themselves any question. So they would not see the world that way.
At first, Carmen is not impressed by her pattern. She treats it as if it is something completely logical. Presumably, anybody who cannot see things her way cannot possibly be a thinking person. In other words, Carmen prefers to think that her pattern is not about herself, but about other people. But as the counseling continues, little by little, she begins to accept and to digest this pattern. Deep realizations do not happen all at once.
I would like to do all this nice behaviors. So as I told you, I trained myself. I very often have these charm campaigns and try to say hello, not forget to say hello to everybody, and etc. So it's not that I don't want to talk to people. I want to go into that thing, way of behaving.
In the first session, we managed to look at a variety of experiences and to describe in a preliminary way a common theme or pattern that characterizes them. And now, in the second session, we have two important tasks before us. First, as we continue to explore Carmen's pattern, our understanding of it will develop and maybe change. Also, Carmen will have to examine what her pattern means about herself and her way of relating to others. But in addition, at some point we will have to make the second important step in the philosophical counseling process. We will need to go from the pattern to the theory or conception that lies behind it. After all, Carmen's pattern expresses a certain attitude towards other people. It expresses, in other words, a way of understanding, a conception of what it means to relate to another person. So these two tasks, continuing to explore the pattern and exploring the conception or theory that lies behind it, will occupy us in the next several sessions. By the way, I apologize that the image of Carmen in this video sometimes appears distorted because of technical problems.
So it's mostly in personal moments where you're supposed to be to say hi, how are you, and so on. Then
then I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
that's so.
Yeah. So would you say that there is a connection here? Or can you see the connection that in all these stories that you mentioned, the personal side of other people is a bit unknown, strange, dark. It's not home. It's not home. The personal side of other people.
And they're not like me.
They're not like you. But you don't know.
I would like them to be like me. I'm not the kind of person that wants to be different. I would like them to be like me, or me like them. That's one of them.
It's interesting that you said that you prefer to be in bad company than alone, because it strikes me that it must be a very lonely experience to feel that the entire world is completely in another land.
Yes, it is.
So do you feel lonely in general?
I feel lonely many times. Not always, but many times.
Is it something in your awareness that sometimes is painful for you?
It's not something that I'm all day thinking I'm lonely. But yeah, sometimes when I think what am I doing, what are all these projects I'm doing, I'm alone and I think I'm alone, but I cannot help it. But I'm surrounded with a lot of people and friends, but it's not a problem of being apparently. It's not a problem of being sociable.
One important way to help the counselee understand her pattern is to compare it to other possible behaviors and attitudes that other people might have. How could her reaction been different? How would another person feel in the same situation? This is an important question both for the counselor and the counselee. It serves to emphasize those features that are unique to her and that express her own personal way of constructing her world.
So I try to fit in. I'm not. It's not that I have the idea that one should not fit in because a society is badly organized. I do. I try to more or less fit in what is possible to fit in without being absurd.
So let's compare you not to everybody, but to those people who are sufficiently deep and interesting, but nevertheless they don't hurt people in your way. They don't have a problem speaking to people at the beginning. They socialize well. what is it about them that you don't have, or what is it about you that they don't have?
I don't know. I want to know it. I would like to be like them.
Okay. I find it interesting that what is important to you is that something that people would be interesting, and maybe other people. For other people, other qualities are important. Not whether they are interesting or not, but let's say, can you give examples? Maybe other people find important other qualities, not just interesting.
Well, I guess those people go to the bars and so on. They just want to be together with others.
Okay, so some people just want to be together, or perhaps some people want fun. Okay, so so you're interested in interesting. Some people are more interested in
immediate laughing.
Yeah, fun, sort of immediate laughing. Immediate. What I'm trying to point out is not any criticism of your attitude, but rather that your attitude is a very specific attitude. There are many other possible attitudes, and I'm not looking at those people who are stupid and superficial, but among the better people, that people look for different qualities, and different qualities may result in different relationship.
Yeah, this is a personal problem. It could be with that it has to do with my vision of some. I don't know why it is. If I can say it's because I don't have the custom, because they don't talk me that from little, because there are other people that they do this automatically, but it's not because they are loving to the others. They have this chip that makes them say hello and Gesundheit and all those words in the right moment, which I don't know, and which I would have liked to have. I would like to have this chip also incorporated.
Are you saying that this chip is for everybody? That those who are involved?
Most people have learned this in their childhood. They do it automatically. It's not that they are kind. They just have the custom.
Let me try to point out an interesting theme in what you're saying. That the relationship to other people, you describe it as something quite technical. And I will explain what I mean. First, there is a chip that is responsible. Second, it is when you try to improve yourself to be more involved, you are looking not for a certain emotion, let's say, but for some how you learn by heart, so to speak, what to say when, and try to implement it, right? And let me now connect it to a third point, and this is the word interesting, the relationship of interesting. There is, if I'm interested in something, it's a limited involvement, right? It's my brain, my mind, my thoughts. It's not so much my emotions, right? It's not my entire being. It's I'm interested, right?
When there is a real friendship, then there is not this technical part is not there, and it's not important if I do I use the right words.
Okay. So there is this very small circle of people that you are in contact with. Then it's not on the technical level, but with the others, there is interesting. There is that little chip that says what to do. There is a conception that some trick is needed here, and I am not clear about the trick.
I have to learn the language of. It's like Wittgenstein says, a game.
Right.
If you're interested, you learn the game.
Yeah. So do you see, now connecting those two themes together, do they seem to you, does it seem to you to provide an accurate picture? One is the theme that I live in a strange world, right? Because most people, not all, but most people, I just don't understand what they're all about, what they're doing, what moves them. And the other theme is that my relationship, again, not to all the world, but to much of the world, is a relationship of tricks, of technical relationship, of actions, not of feelings and emotions. And I would add to this the third theme that you mentioned, which is loneliness. Of course, if you live in a world where you're just dealing with technicalities with most of the world, then there is a distance.
But not with
With a small group.
a small group.
Yes.
And still I feel lonely also with a small group. That's the amazing thing. Yes.
So is it possible that with a small group too, you're not fully involved, and so your worlds are not exactly together? Perhaps more than the person over the street, but nevertheless, there too.
That's possible.
Yeah. Maybe, although there is a difference between the way you relate to just anybody and the way you relate to your 3, 4, 5, 6 good friends, maybe it goes over there too. Maybe there too your attitude is such that it does not allow a complete sharing of worlds, and so you feel isolated, you feel alone, even when you're with them.
That's possible.
Yeah.
So I have to change that.
Our second session is coming to an end, and we are starting to see that behind Carmen's main pattern lies a certain conception, her conception of what relations are. Just like Martin Buber's theory of togetherness or Jean-Paul Sartre's theory of the other, Carmen too has a theory about relations. Only her theory is not written in a book. It is rather expressed in our everyday attitudes, emotions, actions. Now, what is her theory? Well, as far as we can tell at this early stage, according to her, the glue that should connect people together is intellectual interest. This is because intellectual interest is an important quality. It is the understandable and meaningful side of people. But in addition, people also have another side, the personal side. And unlike the intellectual side, the personal is strange and incomprehensible, often dark and conspiring, and sometimes even meaningless or unreal. So this is a dualistic picture, the intellectual and the personal, light and darkness. But it is also a tragic picture, because Carmen's feeling of loneliness suggests that something is wrong in such a world, that things are not what they should be. Well, all this is an interesting philosophical theory. But unlike Martin Buber or Jean-Paul Sartre, Carmen does not mainly think about this theory or writes it in words. Rather, she lives this theory. And as philosophical counselors, such a lived philosophy or lived conception is what interests us most. So in the next few sessions, Carmen and I will continue to explore her lived philosophy or lived conception, and we will philosophize about it. We will examine its basic presuppositions and its central concepts and its implications. We will investigate how it is connected to her everyday life and to her concerns. This is where the most philosophical part of the philosophical counseling process begins. I leave it for you to imagine how this process that we started to see in this video will continue.